So one of the things you sort of touched on it there about traveling away. One of the things that I feel like non-league football is unique compared to sort of the league football is the interaction and the dynamic between the home and away fans, in that you just mix. It's pretty normal, and also you change ends at half time, which is just great. I just
brilliant.
love it. So there's I mean, what do you guys think in terms of like what are the USPs of non-league football compared to league football? Would you say? Why would you encourage someone to I mean, aside from obviously it's supporting your local club, which is always good and preferable, what are the other things that sort of that are sort of a benefit to
so I suppose Margate, they've been relegated, so it's definitely not for the standard of football, that's for sure. But I suppose when I consider Margate as a club, it's more about the community than it is about the football. And if you can't say that about your local team, something's gone very wrong. And especially in the modern era of football, where I support Arsenal and have since I was a kid, and although I hold a lot of near and dear memories of Arsenal, there's still a disconnect in terms of that community spirit. They're 70 miles away from me. It's difficult to get tickets. You don't pass it when you're going to places, and the news is so freely available about everything that's going on. But it's all about the players. It's all about the celebrities. Whereas when I go to watch Margate, I stand there, I can talk to the players like they're human beings, because they are. They come in afterwards and have a pint with us. And when you hear rumours in non-league football, it's about whether the tea lady's left, not about whether the club's going to spend £50 million. So it feels so much more real, and you feel so much more a part of it as well, because you know that by being a season ticket holder, you might be one of only 300 or 250 season ticket holders, and that whole community spirit and getting round the club and doing things like sponsoring the shirt of a player for 50 quid and getting the shirt at the end of the season is so much more near and dear. And you feel that connection gets you so much more G'd up for the games as well. I feel like you turn up and you get really annoyed because you're almost inevitably going to lose. But then you start getting excited, and the games get sort of to that tension point, and you feel so much more involved and invested. And you can give the keeper stick because he can actually hear you. So if he looks a bit weird, he's going to get it, sort of thing. So that whole community and closeness, I feel, is so important at Margate. And you talk about changing ends. Margate home fans, some of them change ends and some refuse, because there's only a bar at one end of the stadium and they're not walking for their pint. And the fact that you can drink a pint on the stands is still one of the most important things for them.
What about you, Dan? What are your?
It's very much an echo of that. Absolutely. It's funny because pints on the stands are probably my first thing to say, not the last thing. But it's very unique to non-league football. But yeah, absolutely. If you fancy a pint, you'll grab it and off you go. You can have your drink whilst you're outside. There's never a worry that someone will throw that pint on the pitch or do something silly, because it doesn't happen. There's the trust, because it is such a community between the fans, the people that work for the club, and the players as well. That just doesn't happen. And yes, it is great being able to go into the clubhouse after the game and say 5-10 minutes after the match, maybe 15 minutes, that the players will come in and have something to eat. You can have a little chat with them. You say, oh, what happened with that, what happened with this, and they were happy to talk to you. Again, with the sponsorship, spot on. So it's a little bit more than 50 quid at Billericay, unfortunately, to sponsor a shirt, but couple of years ago, we did exactly the same thing in the Tamplin era. Just the first year he was with the club, sponsored the club captain. Absolutely brilliant being able to meet him and spend some time with him, get the signed shirt for my son, and he absolutely loved it. And even last week, so as well as being a massive fan of Billericay Town, I've been following them for 21, 22 years. I also coach for one of their kids teams as well. So my son is in one of the under 8s teams, and every now and again the club will just put out on the WhatsApp, so who fancies being mascots this weekend? There's no charge to it. Offer it out to the boys, and whoever wants to, brilliant. You get to walk out with the players, who they know obviously by their first names. They can have a little chat with them. You can play and take penalties at half time, just have a little bit of laugh on the pitch. It's fantastic, and it's not the sort of thing you're going to get in the league or the Premier League or anything like that, unless you're willing to spend £800 or £900.
I love that. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, and and again, going back to community, you know everyone. I know Billericay does. It's a lot more hip, or I don't know. It's ever since the Tamplin era when we were seeing crowds of 1,500. The club have done well to keep those crowds pretty high. So we're still looking. Your home average is about 800 or 900, which is still pretty good. But the core that were there before and some that have joined afterwards, you know them. You know their names. You have a chat with them. We talk to each other during the week to see what's going on. But then at the weekend, it's great. You know where they're going to be, at what pub they're going to be. You know how long they're going to be there for. You can go in, have a pint, have a little chat, go to the game, and we all know exactly what's going on. And we can, I love it. I just love the whole camaraderie of it.
There is that sense of community, isn't there? I mean, we talk about it sometimes in Round Table as well, that like I feel like people need something like that in their lives, like whether it is a charity organization or whether it's a football club, or there's a real buzz and a real drive that you get for being part of something a little bigger than yourself. And there's, I remember when I brought some guys, Dan knows this, like we came down from Yorkshire, some of my friends, and I took them to a Billericay Town game, and we had just the best day ever. It was brilliant. and they were, it was so welcoming. And I remember one of them, because he got like a thick Yorkshire accent, and one of them was at the bar, and they were like, "What are you doing here?" But it was more like, you know, what's brought you to our club. It was that sort of, and as I thought, you wouldn't get that at an Arsenal game. You just don't have that connection. You don't have that sense of like being part of the club, despite what they do try to put out on social media, and they're, you know, PR juggernauts, aren't they, some of the big clubs? But yet at the end of the day, fans at clubs like that we're a dollar sign, really. Whereas at a non-league club, you're part of the, you know, the heart and soul of that club. You're one of the vital organs that, you know, without the fans, it just wouldn't work, would it?
And as well with non-league, and as well with non-league, I'm sure it's exactly the same at Margate. The club relies so heavily on volunteers, on fans just giving up their time to man the turnstiles, to help in the ticket office, to do the 50-50 draw, to help in the bar. The club would not exist if it wasn't for people that love the club so much that they're willing to give away their time for free. Maybe sometimes not even watch some of the game because they want to make sure that the club exists.
And I suppose from my perspective as well, I probably spend, not necessarily volunteering, but I'm at the club 3 times a week. So I'll go and watch a game on a Saturday, but I also play football there. So it's such a fabric of sort of my daily life almost to be involved in it, and along with hundreds of other people in the Margate and surrounding areas, that because it is a hub for sport in our local community, because you've got leisure leagues, you've got 5-a-side cages, and obviously the kids youth football is prevalent. It's along with Ramsgate Football Club, is one of the only 2 semi-professional teams in the area. So naturally they've got a full suite of youth football, and that's ultimately how I ended up becoming a Margate fan, is because as a kid, as a 9-year-old, I was a Margate FC youth player for a few years, and was lucky enough to be one of the mascots. So that endeared me when I was a kid, and I got all the signatures of these people that were playing for Margate, and no one knows their names, but I've got their signatures.